I'm honored to be here tonight with the Scottsdale community and everyone else. Tonight, I want to share with you a quick reflection on Surah Al-Fajr. And Surah Al-Fajr is a short surah. It is at the end of the Quran in the 30th juz of the Quran. And obviously, I'm not going to have time to go over lots of details. So I want to focus on the thematic tafsir. So the focus will be on the themes of the surah. Of course, the surah starts with an oath, and this oath is by one of the important I will share with you, inshallah, some thoughts on Surah Al-Fajr. And like I said, Surah Al-Fajr or the time of Fajr is very critical to us in the month of Ramadan. It is the marker for the beginning of the fast, and it is a time where we take the blessed meal before Fajr. And here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes an oath by this important time. Anything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by is no doubt important and has great significance. Now, not only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by Al-Fajr, the dawn, He also swears by the 10 nights. And there's a difference of opinion about the meaning here. It could refer to the last 10 nights of Ramadan, which we know, again, are very, very critical. But also it could refer to the first 10 days of the Hijjah. And also those days are, as we know, very important as well. And then also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by the odd and even. Now, I do not have time to go over the words one by one. I'm going to do what we call a thematic tafsir. So we're going to focus on the main themes of the surah. So anytime we see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taking an oath, it means something important will come after. And that's why it's like an attention seeker. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants our attention. So he swears by something important, but now he's going to swear on a truth, on a particular truth. And this truth is about the fate of the civilizations before us and what happened to those people. And the reason why, because it's not really useful if we learn about certain civilizations and how they rise and fell. You can study that in history. But here we're going to study the reason for their demise. Why did they fall after the rise? We have to study the reasons why certain nations quit to exist. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions several civilizations, and those are mentioned in the Quran, such as Thamud, Fir'aun, the Pharaoh of Egypt. But the common denominator in all of these civilizations, although they were great, materialistic, but there was a problem, and that problem was Tughyan. And Tughyan is mentioned in the Quran quite a bit. Tughyan is basically any time we exceed the limits. All right. And exceeding the limits could be in different areas. It could be on different fronts. In this particular surah, as we're going to see from beginning to end, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about money. And this is why we have to listen very carefully, because this is very relevant and very applicable to us today. So one of the reasons for tughyan, which is exceeding the limits and having widespread corruption, because the next ayah says فَأَكْثَرُوا فِيهَا الْفَسَادِ. Not only were they corrupt, but their corruption was so widespread and abundant. There was an abundance of corruption. That's what the ayah described here. And as a result, they deserve the punishment of God. They deserve the punishment of Allah. Nowadays, there's a lot of talk about the punishment of Allah and whether this virus or that virus is a particular punishment. We don't have to settle those differences. Suffice it to say that there's certain acts that if nations and if a large number of people get involved in, it could call for, it could summon, if you will, the punishment of God. And one of them is how we perceive money. So here we have to be very careful when we talk about the topic of money, because it's very sensitive. It is actually a topic that we all care about, especially in this time and age. I mean, financial independence and financial success is on the top of the priorities we have. And this is on everybody's mind. There's no exception here. So that's why this topic is very, very important. And that's why it is important to understand it properly. Now, in this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not scold people for making money. That's not the issue. The issue is how we perceive money and how we perceive people that have money. So that's a very nuanced and subtle point here you're going to see in this verse or in the surah. So, right at the middle of the surah, or maybe toward the second third of the surah, if you will, you see the climax and you see that like the main idea being delivered. And that you find in these two verses, 15 and 16, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, and as when a human or a man or an individual, you could say, when they are tested, and let's remember the word tested. He said, as to when the man or the individual is tested by his Lord, by a good thing, a bounty, a blessing, right? Maybe a new source of income, maybe more money in your life. He will reply, he will react. This man or woman will react and say, oh, it is God who was generous with me, meaning God likes me, Allah loves me. So that is the reaction. I get money and I think this is because Allah likes me. And then you see the opposite reaction if I am tested with the opposite. If I am tested with a lack of resources, a lack of money, a lack of resources, then my reaction is the opposite. I would say, oh, Allah is trying to put me down. Allah is trying to humiliate me. Allah does not like me. Allah does not love me. So that is a perception in many people's mind that, oh, he makes money, he must be lucky. He does not make money, he must be unlucky. He must be, miserable. He's not fortunate, right? We talk about fortune. So he's not fortunate in this life. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, this is totally wrong. You've gotten the totally wrong approach, totally the wrong insight into this matter. Because in both cases, it is a test. It is not indicative whether Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala likes you or not. In both cases, you are tested by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, obviously, the test could be different. In the case of a rich person, the test is that I'm getting a lot of money, so am I going to use it in the right way? Because, once you start making a lot of money, as you know, happens to celebrities and the rich and famous, a lot of them go into drugs, right? Because there's nothing to stop them. They have all the money needed, right? There's just one outlet. There are obviously other outlets, which is, haram. So how am I going to use the money is one test. How am I making the money? Because once you make a lot of money, you cannot say, well, I'm going to stop, or I want to have less. It's always a competition now, because even if the money is more than enough, you still want to make more money than other people. So there's no stopping you of seeking haram ways. So this is why it is a test for the rich people. Obviously, also, are they going to give to the needy? Are they going to give to the poor people? That's another test. If you're a poor person, are you going to be patient? Are you going to complain about the decree of Allah? Are you going to, are you going to show objections to Allah's distribution of wealth? So there's a test for everybody, every one of us. But that's how we should perceive money, as a test and not as a judge, a judgment call, or as a judge. Money is not a judge. The dollar is not a judge. That is really the concept of this surah. Now, if you continue, you see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about some of the outcomes of the wrong perception of money. So, for example, he said, rather, كلا بل لا تكرمون اليتيم. You do not and you are not generous with the orphan. As a result of this wrong perception, you're not generous with the orphans, the people you should be, generous with. And ولا تحاضون على طعام المسكين, and you do not advise each other, you do not encourage each other to feed the poor. ولا تحاضون على طعام المسكين. Again, because now your priorities are different. If you're competing and you're trying to have more money than the other person, and you think it's a sign of Allah's pleasure with you, right? Then you're not going to be concerned with the orphans and the poor people. They're a second priority for you. Not only that, وَتَأْكُلُونَ التُّرَاثَ أَكْلًا لَمًّا. And here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about how people fight over fortunes and how people fight over inheritance. So here, basically, people who inherited from their father, most likely relatives, they're going to be fighting and they're going to devour. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the word تَأْكُلُون, like you're devouring wealth now. And that shows a lot of greed. So that all happens because of the wrong perception of money and wealth. تأكلون تراث أكلا لما, like you don't leave anything. You wipe it out. You annihilate everything. There's nothing that can stand in front of you. No familial ties, no, next of kin, nothing. Because money is number one. وَتُحِبُّونَ الْمَالَ حُبًّا جَمًّا. And this is really the climax of the surah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala summed it up in one short sentence. He said, and you love, hear it again, you love money. You love wealth so much. حُبًّا جَمًّا, like so much, abundantly. You love wealth like nothing else. You love it wholeheartedly. This is a clear description and a very precise one, by the way. And it can happen to everybody. It can happen to Muslims, non-Muslims. If you don't work on yourself, it doesn't stop. I mean, the fact that you are a born Muslim, or your name is Ahmad or Muna or Aisha or Fatima, it doesn't stop the fact that you love money. We all love money. It's in our nature, and we have to work on it. And it's not to stop making money, but to have the right perception of money. That's what the surah is trying to correct. This is a concept that the surah is trying to correct. Now, I know I'm going to stop in a minute. So if you read on, and just to show you that the whole surah is talking about this important concept of how we perceive money, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and in order to solve this problem, because Quran doesn't just offer the problem or does not just explain the problem, it also wants to offer a solution. And one of the solutions to treat with this wrong perception, one of the solutions is to make us think beyond money. So what is one thing that is beyond money and beyond any matter to begin with? It is the fact that this life as we know it will cease to exist. In fact, this very earth we live on will cease to exist in the way we know it. And that's why you see this abrupt, stop and this sudden shift in the surah. So it says, kalla. Kalla is like stop, right there. Like stop thinking the way you're thinking and pay attention. Kalla idha dukkat al-ardu dakan dakka. Like remember this day when the earth will shatter. And dak is like when you demolish something, so you don't leave anything except rubbles. So that's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes earth. And this may be one of the most violent descriptions of the final day of earth, or the end of earth, because it's important. It's important for our attention. So he said, rather, remember the day when the earth will shatter, it will be demolished, because that's the end of everything, the end of wealth, the end of money, the end of materialism. All right. And then the rest of the surah is a description, a reminder of the hereafter, something to look for other than money, right? something to aspire for, something to plan for other than money. Because I mean, we are consumed with this worry, this concern. I want to have, financial independence. I want to have financial security. This is why I have to plan for it, which is fine, but also plan beyond that. What is beyond that? It is the akhirah. It is the day of judgment. So if you read on, you see a very graphical description of the hereafter. This is intentional, just to shift our minds away from our daily concerns of money and wealth. So you can read on. I'll let you do that, inshallah, later as you reflect and ponder upon this surah, a great surah of the Quran. And this is really the purpose of Ramadan. It is to spend more time with the Quran and ponder, contemplate, and think and reflect. And you can do that on your own to a large extent, even if you don't have, the greatest tafsir or the greatest translation. You can still relate to the main themes of the Quran. And this is no doubt a big theme in the surah. So I hope this was helpful to all of us and was beneficial. And I hope that would be a seed of change in the way we perceive money and wealth. Jazakumullah khair. And assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.